If you are a European business leader or maybe a CTO evaluating AI for your enterprise right now, this statistic should terrify you. 18%.
It is a rough number.
Right. According to the AetherLink guide we're looking at today, the AI voice agents and multimodal chatbots enterprise 2026 guide, that is the tiny fraction of enterprise AI chatbots in production today that actually meet the EU AI Act's high-risk compliance standards. Just 18%.
Yeah, which is wild when you think about it.
Because we are talking about a regulatory environment that literally has the power to pull the plug on your core customer-facing systems overnight, right? And the vast majority of current deployments are just operating completely outside the bounds of those new requirements.
That 18% figure, it perfectly illustrates this really uncomfortable transition point we've reached in the enterprise technology cycle.
Like a growing pain.
Exactly. I mean, for the last 2 to 3 years, boardroom conversations have been almost entirely philosophical. Executive teams were asking if they should use generative AI, or just kind of debating its hypothetical potential.
Right, the hype phase.
Yeah, the hype phase. But we have decisively crossed out of that era. The enterprise landscape has shifted entirely to asking how.
Like, how do we actually build the thing?
Yes. How do you architect and deploy production-grade autonomous agents that deliver immediate, measurable return on investment at scale without running headfirst into those incredibly strict European regulatory walls? The philosophical phase is over, and the operational phase is here.
Which is really the core mission of our deep dive today. We are breaking down this AetherLink 2026 guide to understand how the top tier of enterprises are navigating this exact shift.
It's a critical roadmap for anyone in the space right now.
Definitely. So we're looking at that leap from basic chatbots to true autonomous agents, how multimodal processing is totally redefining Tier 1 support, and how building for compliance is actually becoming a massive competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the fundamental vocabulary, because the report stresses a hard dividing line between legacy chatbots and what it calls agentic AI. From a structural standpoint, like what actually dictates that transition?
So the dividing line is really the shift from a reactive pattern matcher to a proactive reasoning engine.
Okay.
A traditional chatbot, which, let's be honest, has frustrated consumers for the better part of a decade.
Oh, absolutely.
It operates on a very rigid, static decision tree.
Yeah.
It just waits for the user to type a query. It scans that text for predefined keywords, and it maps those keywords to a canned response in its database.
It's totally locked in.
Exactly. It has zero capacity to deviate from those rails. But agentic AI is fundamentally different because it actually possesses the ability to plan, reason, and execute.
So it's thinking on its feet, so to speak.
Sort of, yeah. When you present an autonomous agent with an unstructured, complex problem, it dynamically breaks that overarching problem down into a sequence of actionable subtasks.
Interesting.
And then it actively reaches out across your enterprise architecture, pinging your CRM via API, querying your inventory database, interfacing with your billing system to solve those subtasks in real time.
That's a huge leap.
It is. To put the scale of this architectural shift into perspective, the Gartner 2025 AI Adoption Report actually projects that 33% of all enterprise software will natively include these agentic capabilities by 2028.
Wow, 1/3 of all software. So to put that into a framework, a traditional chatbot is basically like dealing with a frustrating drive-through speaker that only understands a rigid menu. If you ask for something slightly off menu, it just breaks down.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it.
But an agentic AI functions much more like a high-end general contractor or a concierge. You hand them the blueprint, like the ultimate goal you want to achieve, and they autonomously go out and hire the plumbers, the electricians, coordinate all those systems to actually build the house.
And crucially, that general contractor adapts when they hit a roadblock. If the agent queries the inventory database and finds a product is out of stock, it doesn't just crash or give you a dumb error message. It uses its reasoning to pivot. It might query the supply chain API to find the next delivery date and then offer the customer a pre-order option instead.
I mean, I understand the utility there, but putting my CTO hat on for a second, giving an AI general contractor autonomous read and write access to my core billing system sounds like an incredibly risky proposition.
Oh, people are terrified of it.
I would be. What happens when the model inevitably hallucinates, misinterprets a complex prompt, and autonomously decides to issue, 1,000 refunds by mistake? How do you put a system prone to hallucination in charge of financial execution?
You don't. You really don't. And that specific fear is exactly why early generative AI was kept strictly walled off from operational systems.
Okay, so how do they solve it now?
Well, the AetherLink guide details how enterprise architecture had to evolve, focusing heavily on frameworks like the Claude Agent SDK. Earlier large language models operated as a black box.
Right. Stuff goes in, stuff comes out.
Exactly. A prompt goes in, a response comes out, and neither the user nor the developer has any visibility into the neural pathways that generated that output. Right. And you simply cannot attach a black box to a payment gateway.
No, absolutely not.
But the Claude Agent SDK is engineered around a core principle called interpretability.
Okay, interpretability. How does that actually manifest in the software? Are you saying the system logs its internal monologue?
That is functionally exactly what happens.
Really?
Yeah, the SDK forces the agent to generate and log a transparent reasoning chain for every single action it takes prior to execution.
Okay, give me an example.
So if a customer requests a refund, the system logs the sequence. Step 1, parse user request for refund. Step 2, query CRM for purchase date result is 14 days ago. Step 3, query return policy database result allows returns up to 30 days. Step 4, condition met, execute refund API. The system isn't guessing, it's executing a traceable deterministic logic path.
And I assume that reasoning chain is also what enables the system to know when it's out of its depth, like when to stop.
Precisely. If the agent hits a scenario where the logic path breaks, say the purchase was 31 days ago, but the customer is a high-tier VIP, the reasoning chain triggers an intelligent escalation.
It calls for backup.
Right. It pauses execution, flags a human support worker, and hands over that entire transparent log so the human has total context instantly. That interpretability is the mechanism that really mitigates that runaway AI risk.
Okay, that makes sense. But if the agent is authorized to make those high-stakes decisions, the way a customer communicates with it becomes paramount, right?
Absolutely.
Because text-based chat feels incredibly limiting for complex problem solving. If I'm frustrated or have a really nuanced problem, how does the agent capture that context accurately before it starts executing these logic chains?
So this is where we hit the concept of multimodal AI, which the report identifies as the new baseline standard for Tier 1 enterprise support.
Okay, multimodal.
We're moving away from forcing the user to translate their complex real-world problem into a few lines of text on a smartphone keyboard. Multimodal architecture allows the agent to natively process text, voice, images, and video simultaneously.
All at once?
Yeah, maintaining all of those inputs within a single continuous context window.
I want to visualize how that single context window functions in practice. Let's say I'm dealing with an internet outage at my house. What does that multimodal interaction actually look like from my perspective?
Okay, imagine you get an alert on your phone that your home network is down while you're driving.
Okay.
You tap a button and initiate a voice call with your ISP's AI agent. Because it's multimodal, the agent instantly correlates your phone number with your account, checks the local grid status, and begins troubleshooting via voice.
While I'm driving.
Exactly. Then you arrive home, but you do not need to stay on the phone. You hang up and open your ISP's mobile app. The agent is waiting in a text chat, fully aware of the voice conversation you just had.
Oh, so I don't have to start over.
Never. It asks to see the status lights on your physical router. You just snap a photo and drop it into the chat.
Wait, so the AI physically sees the image file natively. It isn't just like reading image metadata.
No, it processes the visual data directly. It identifies the hardware model, registers that, say, the third LED is blinking red, maps that visual data to a specific hardware failure in its documentation.
That's crazy.
And immediately generates a customized 10-second video clip showing you exactly which recess button you need to press with the paperclip to hard reset that specific model.
Wow.
Right. The user moved from voice to text to image to video without ever repeating themselves, escalating to a human, or opening a new support ticket.
I mean, that level of friction removal has to have a massive impact on operational overhead.
What's fascinating here is the sheer velocity of the ROI when enterprises eliminate that friction. The guide actually references data from Deloitte's 2025 Customer Experience Report.
What are the numbers looking like?
Enterprises deploying true multimodal agents are documenting a 32% reduction in average resolution time.
22%, that's almost half.
Yeah, and when you slice your average handle time nearly in half across millions of interactions, you are looking at a 35 to 45% drop in total Tier 1 support costs.
That is massive, and a huge driver of that efficiency seems to be the voice agent component specifically. The report designates voice as the new primary interface.
It does.
But historically, automated phone systems, the old press one for billing menus, they have been universally despised by consumers. We've all screamed at a robot that couldn't understand our accent.
Well, everyone has that shared trauma.
So how is this new generation of voice agents fundamentally different on a technical level?
The legacy systems you're describing, they relied on a highly latent multi-step pipeline. They took your audio, ran it through a speech-to-text transcriber, fed that text to a basic processor, generated a text reply, and then ran that through a text-to-speech synthesizer.
Super clunky.
Yet it was slow, robotic, and it's stripped away all the context. But the modern voice agents, highlighted in the AetherLink guide, utilize native acoustic wave processing. They don't translate your voice into text first. They analyze the raw audio waveform directly.
Meaning they're actually listening to the tone, not just the vocabulary.
Yes. They are processing cadence, pitch, regional accents, and crucially, emotional tremor in real time.
Emotional tremor.
Yeah, this enables what we call sentiment triage. If a customer calls a bank and their voice is audibly shaking or elevated because their debit card was stolen, the AI detects that acoustic signature of panic instantly.
Oh, wow.
It bypasses the standard greeting, adjusts its own synthesized voice to a calmer, more empathetic register, and instantly initiates the protocol to lock the compromised card. It is literally absorbing the human nuance that text inherently lacks.
Okay, stripping 40% out of your support budget through faster resolution is a compelling business case.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting. How does this architecture transition from just saving money to actively generating revenue? Because the AetherLink guide introduces the concept of proactive engagement, and that seems to completely invert the traditional definition of customer service.
It really does.
Traditionally, customer support is a defensive posture. You wait for a ticket to be generated, and you try to put the fire out as cheaply as possible.
Proactive engagement flips that model entirely.
Yeah.
Because these agentic systems have continuous access to your back-end analytics, they don't wait for the customer to realize there's a problem.
They get ahead of it.
Exactly. They monitor usage patterns to identify the precursors of frustration or churn, and they intervene before the issue actually materializes.
I want to dig into the mechanics of that.
Huh?
The source material uses a telecommunications example.
Right.
Let's say I'm a mobile customer who's been streaming heavily while traveling, and I'm rapidly approaching my monthly data cap. Normally, the telecom provider just lets me cross that threshold.
You get the bill.
Right. 2 weeks later, I get a massive surprise overage charge on my bill. I'm furious. I call the support line to argue the charge, and I potentially cancel my contract in retaliation. How does an AI agent alter that specific timeline?
It alters it by monitoring your real-time usage API and cross-referencing it with your billing API.
Okay.
The moment the agent detects your usage trajectory will result in a penalty, it autonomously sends a push notification or an SMS. It says, I notice your data usage is unusually high this week and you're on track for a €50 overage charge. If you reply, upgrade, I can instantly shift you to an unlimited tier for this billing cycle for only €10, saving you €40 in penalties.
That is brilliant. We look at the psychology of that interaction. It is profound.
Right.
You've taken a moment that is traditionally adversarial, the company punishing the user with a hidden fee, and transformed it into a moment of extreme brand advocacy. The customer literally feels like the corporation is actively guarding their wallet.
And if we look at the structural economics of that exact same interaction, the impact is immense. The AI just prevented a high-friction support call, saving operational cost.
Yep.
It prevented a likely contract cancellation, protecting the baseline revenue.
Yeah.
And, most importantly, it successfully cross-sold a higher-tier subscription, actively increasing the monthly recurring revenue.
It's a win-win-win.
It is. And the analytics validate this approach entirely. Organizations deploying proactive AI engagement are tracking a 15 to 25% reduction in churn rates alongside a 10 to 18% increase in average contract value. The support center literally becomes a localized sales engine.
I always appreciate the theory, but I need to see the receipts from a company that actually executed this transition.
Sure.
The guide provides a detailed case study of a mid-sized European fintech company, and their starting metrics were brutal. They had successfully scaled to 250,000 active users, but they were buckling under the weight of 12,000 daily support inquiries.
Yeah, that's a lot of tickets.
Their human support infrastructure was totally overwhelmed. Customers were sitting in the queue for an average of 4.2 minutes, and their customer satisfaction score, their CSAT, was stalled at a 6.8 out of 10.
It's the most common scaling bottleneck in the enterprise sector. The user base just outgrew the support capacity.
So what did they do?
They contracted AetherLink to implement a comprehensive architectural overhaul, deploying a conversational AI platform built on the Claude Agent SDK we discussed earlier.
Okay.
They deployed voice agents natively supporting 8 different European languages, and they heavily utilized proactive engagement for compliance tasks, specifically KYC, Know Your Customer verifications.
Wait, how does an AI agent proactively manage KYC documentation?
So rather than waiting for a user to attempt a transaction, fail, and have their account frozen due to missing ID verification, the agent proactively contacted users in their native language.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, guided them to upload their passport photos via a secure text link. And because the system was multimodal, if a user uploaded a blurry photo, the AI saw the lack of focus instantly and politely asked them to adjust the lighting and retake it, all within the same chat window.
So it handled the whole thing.
It handled the entire compliance verification autonomously.
And the performance metrics after just 6 months of deployment are staggering. That 4.2-minute average wait time plummeted to 22 seconds.
Incredible drop.
But here is where I have to push back on the data. The case study notes that their self-service resolution rate, the percentage of inquiries handled entirely without human intervention, jumped from 34% to 71%.
Right.
When I hear a number that high, my immediate suspicion is that the AI was simply designed to be a labyrinth. Like, did they actually solve the problems, or did they just make it so difficult to reach a human that the customer simply gave up and closed the app?
That is the critical metric to interrogate, and it's exactly why the CSAT score is the ultimate validator here.
Okay, let's look at the CSAT.
If the system was merely a labyrinth deflecting customers, the satisfaction score would completely plummet. Instead, their CS jumped from that stagnant 6.8 up to an 8.3 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The users weren't abandoning the process. They were getting their issues resolved so efficiently that their perception of the brand elevated significantly. And from a financial perspective, the fintech achieved a complete return on their infrastructure investment within 9 months.
9 months. Which brings us directly back to the most terrifying statistic from the very beginning of this deep dive, the fact that 82% of current deployments fail EU AI Act compliance.
Right.
This fintech is operating in a highly regulated financial space, handling sensitive personal identification and autonomous account actions. How did they avoid failing the compliance audit?
They succeeded because they did not treat compliance as an afterthought.
They built it in.
Exactly. They didn't build the system and then attempt to bolt regulatory safeguards onto the perimeter a week before launch. The AetherLink guide focuses heavily on how the EU AI Act classifies these systems. If your agent is making decisions regarding financial services or biometric identification, it is legally classified as high risk.
Right, which comes with major rules.
And the two massive hurdles for high-risk systems are Article 13 and Article 24.
Let's break those down for the listeners. What is the operational requirement for Article 13?
So Article 13 dictates transparency of interaction. It legally requires that the system clearly and unambiguously notify the user that they are interacting with an artificial intelligence.
So no pretending to be human.
Right. You cannot design a voice agent with synthetic pauses and breathing sounds intended to trick a consumer into believing they are speaking to a human employee.
That seems relatively easy to implement. But Article 24 is the one that forces architectural changes, isn't it?
Article 24 is the heavyweight. It mandates explainability. It requires that high-risk systems be designed so their operation is sufficiently transparent to enable deployers to interpret the system's output.
Okay.
If a regulatory auditor knocks on your door and asks why your AI denied a specific user's credit line increase on a Tuesday in October, you cannot just shrug and say the algorithm decided.
This is exactly where the Claude Agent SDK and that transparent reasoning chain we discussed earlier becomes the absolute silver bullet.
Exactly. When the auditor asks for the explanation, you simply pull the SDK's log. You hand them the precise, step-by-step logic chain the AI executed.
Step 1, Step 2.
Right. Step 1, query user income. Step 2, query current debt-to-income ratio. Step 3, ratio exceeds regulatory limit of 40%. Step 4, deny request.
That's bulletproof.
The interpretability is built right into the foundation. And what the most sophisticated CTOs are realizing is that treating Article 24 as a design principle rather than a legal burden is a massive competitive advantage.
Because it drastically accelerates your time to market. If you build a black box AI, You will spend 6 months in regulatory purgatory trying to reverse engineer a dashboard that proves to auditors it isn't biased. But if you architect for explainability from day one, you deploy faster, you avoid the catastrophic fines, and you inherently build deeper trust with your user base because your system can always articulate its logic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, compliance stops being a defensive shield and actually becomes an aggressive differentiator in the market.
We have covered an incredible spectrum of architecture today, from the transition to agentic reasoning, the native processing of multimodal inputs, the revenue generation of proactive engagement, and the strategic advantage of regulatory compliance.
It's a lot of ground.
It is. So it's time to distill this down for the enterprise leader listening. What is the single most important takeaway you want them to leave with? For me, my number one takeaway is the sheer velocity of the timeline to value. When you analyze a case study where a mid-sized enterprise completely overhauls their core support infrastructure and achieves a full, undeniable ROI in under 12 months, it proves this technology has matured.
Absolutely.
This is no longer bleeding-edge experimentation reserved just for tech giants. It is robust, enterprise-ready, and available today. If an organization is waiting on the sidelines for the tech to stabilize, they are actively ceding ground to competitors who are deploying these operational efficiencies right now.
That speed of deployment is crucial. But for me, the number one takeaway is the fundamental paradigm shift in how we define the purpose of customer interaction.
How so?
For a century, customer service has been defined by reactive resolution, waiting for the failure and minimizing the cost of the repair. Agentic AI shifts the entire industry to proactive anticipation. When implemented correctly, these agents are not just cheaper ways to answer the phone. They are analytical engines designed to prevent the phone from ringing in the first place, while simultaneously identifying micro-opportunities to drive new revenue. It transforms the largest cost center in the enterprise into a localized engine for growth.
So what does this all mean? We have seen how the underlying mechanics of these agents allow them to see, hear, reason, and execute with an efficiency that was literally impossible just 36 months ago.
It's moving so fast. And this really raises an important question regarding the future of our human workforce.
Yeah.
If we're entering a near-term reality where multimodal, proactive AI agents can autonomously anticipate and resolve 90% of standard customer inquiries before the user even registers a complaint, how will that fundamentally redefine the purpose of human customer service teams by the end of this decade?
That's a profound thought.
Are we rapidly moving toward an ecosystem where human agents are entirely removed from logistics, troubleshooting, and billing, and are instead reserved exclusively for managing highly complex emotional crises or nuanced ethical dilemmas?
Right, the stuff machines just can't do.
Exactly. And if that is the case, how do we need to start retraining our human teams for that reality today?
Definitely something every leader needs to be thinking about. For more AI insights, visit etherlink.ai.